Why do women seem drawn to those who don't offer them the value they deserve? It's a painful question but also a revealing one. We often believe that love is a quest for safety, tenderness, and attention. Yet, more often than not, unconscious desires turn toward the opposite: indifference, mystery, even neglect. And have you ever asked yourself why you felt more attracted to someone who gave you less? The paradox of lack. Modern psychology reveals an unsettling truth: we desire what eludes us. Human desire is not shaped by logic but by mystery, by the tension of what we do not yet have. When a woman perceives that a man doesn't fully value her, a subtle but powerful psychological mechanism is triggered within her: intermittent reinforcement. This mechanism has long been studied in behavioral psychology. Imagine a slot machine in a casino. Each pull of the lever brings uncertain results. Sometimes nothing, sometimes a small payout, sometimes a jackpot. It's precisely this uncertainty that makes the game addictive. And it is the very same pattern the brain applies to human relationships. When a man acts cold, distant, or sparing with his affection, he sends an ambiguous signal. Sometimes he offers attention, sometimes he withdraws it. This unpredictability becomes an emotional drug. It creates tension, a constant state of anticipation. Will I receive today what I long for? Will I be seen, loved, validated? This paradox makes scarcity more desirable than abundance. Because when love, attention, or validation are given unconditionally and without limit, the human brain eventually takes them for granted. It's a law of psychology. What is abundant loses its perceived value. But what is rare becomes precious, sometimes to the point of obsession. The role of dopamine. To understand this phenomenon, we need to look at brain chemistry. Each time a reward appears unpredictably, the brain releases a surge of dopamine. Contrary to common belief, dopamine is not simply the pleasure hormone. It is, above all, the hormone of anticipation and pursuit. Which means that what fuels addiction is not so much the reward itself, but the expectation of the reward. Uncertainty triggers a burst of neural activity, because the brain is programmed to seek to fill the gap. In other words, a man's indifference, or partial absence, can paradoxically spark greater desire than steady attention. Have you ever noticed how, when someone replies to your messages irregularly, you think about them more? How a sudden silence can occupy your mind far more than a flowing conversation. That's proof that absence sometimes weighs heavier than presence. The spiral of lack and validation. When a woman faces a man who doesn't fully value her, a cycle begins. She feels a lack. She waits for a sign, a token of attention. When that sign comes, even if tiny, she experiences intense relief. That relief creates emotional dependence. And the longer the wait, the greater the reward seems. It is not the intensity of love given that captivates, but the contrast between emptiness and fulfillment. This mechanism is exactly what transforms an unbalanced relationship into an almost magnetic bond. Not because the man gave more, but because he gave less in an unpredictable way. Psychological experiments. Famous experiments in psychology have illustrated this principle. In the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner showed that pigeons fed randomly pecked at a lever frantically, far more than those who received food regularly. Applied to human relationships, this means that irregular attention, sometimes given, sometimes withdrawn, creates obsessive anticipation. The brain constantly seeks to reproduce that moment of gratification, even if it is rare and minimal. In other words, it is not love that keeps someone hooked but the lack of love. The cruel paradox of value. This leads us to a hard truth. Human beings often place more value on what is uncertain than on what is secure. A man who offers steady, constant, predictable affection is rationally the ideal partner. Yet to some women his love may feel less exciting, less alive, precisely because it does not trigger that psychological tension. Whereas the distant man, the one who sends mixed signals, stirs an intense desire. Not because he loves more but because his inconsistency sets off a dangerous mental game. The need to conquer, to understand, to obtain what slips away. It's cruel, but this is how the paradox of lack operates. So ask yourself this. How many times have you mistaken the intensity of lack for the intensity of love? Have you ever pursued someone not because they gave you much but precisely because they gave you little? And what if what you believed was passion was, in reality, only an addiction to lack? The mirror of desires. Plato once wrote, "We love what we lack." This phrase, more than 2,000 years old, still resonates as a universal truth. Human desire does not turn toward what is present, but toward what escapes us, what withdraws, what digs an absence within us. When a woman becomes attached to a man who does not value her, it is not simply a matter of attraction. It is a philosophical quest, even if she is unaware of it. Deep down, she is not searching for a man. She is searching to mend a wound, to fill a void, to find in another's gaze the answer to a question she has never dared to ask. The philosopher Pascal wrote, "All of humanity's misfortune comes from one thing alone, not knowing how to remain at rest in a room." What Pascal described was this inner restlessness, this need to seek outside what we refuse to confront inside. Desire as a reflection of wounds. When a woman turns to a man who does not value her, she is not merely choosing a person. She is choosing a mirror. A mirror reflecting her lacks, her insecurities, her buried wounds. The distant, indifferent, or cold man becomes the symbol of that part of herself that has never been acknowledged. That is why attachment can be so strong, so irrational, so painful. Because behind desire lies a much larger quest. The quest to find oneself, to heal, to fill an inner absence. Schopenhauer said, "We are nothing but will." And when that will is marked by emptiness, it drives us to desire what deepens the emptiness, rather than what soothes it. So ask yourself, is it really the person you are chasing, or a part of yourself you have never accepted? Nietzsche and the intoxication of uncertainty. Nietzsche, for his part, wrote, "We do not seek happiness, we seek intoxication. Happiness is calm, steady, gentle, sometimes even silent. But intoxication burns, shakes, electrifies. It gives the illusion of being alive even as it destroys." When a woman desires a man who does not value her, it is not always because she wants to build something. Sometimes it is because she seeks that vertigo, that intensity, that thrill born of uncertainty. The stable, loving, constant man may offer peace. But the distant, ambiguous, elusive man offers something that feels like intoxication. A mix of hope and frustration, of lack and promise. And that tension can sometimes be more enticing than the certainty of true love. So you, who are listening, are you really seeking love, or that intoxication that makes you feel alive? The paradox of lack in ancient philosophy. The Stoics expressed this paradox in their own way. Epictetus wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them." In other words, it is not the distant man who captivates. It is the meaning attributed to him, the inner interpretation that turns his indifference into a challenge, a mystery, a promise. A woman who desires the one who does not value her is not chained to him, but to the idea she projects onto him. She is imprisoned by her own reading, her own expectations. And here lies the tragedy. We do not fall in love with the other, but with the story we tell ourselves through them. Love as a quest for the self. If Plato affirmed that we love what we lack, it is because, for him, love was not merely an encounter between two people. Love was a metaphysical lack. The nostalgia of a lost unity, the desire to rediscover a part of ourselves that we seek through the other. Thus, a woman who turns to a man who does not value her may, without knowing it, be searching for that forgotten part of herself. She is chasing less the man than the symbol he embodies, that of her own lost completeness. The philosopher Rumi, the Sufi master, wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And what if these desires, as painful as they are, were not mistakes but doors? Doors to a deeper awareness of the self, to a healing not yet visible? So take a moment to reflect. Is your desire directed toward a person, or toward a lack that has lived within you for a long time? Are you pursuing true love, or a mirror of your wounds? Are you seeking happiness or intoxication? The inner journey. Imagine for a moment. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Let your mind travel back to that specific memory. The last time your heart beat faster for someone who, nonetheless, did not give you their full attention. Do you remember that strange mixture, both sweet and cruel? That fire burning in your chest, that whirlwind of emotions with no rest. Was it truly that person you desired? Or was it what they stirred within you, doubt, lack, that thirst to finally be recognized? Look closely at this memory. It has a color, a texture, almost a music. Was it really love? Or was it the echo of an old emptiness you already carried inside long before this encounter? The inner theater. Every relationship is not just a meeting between two beings. It is also an inner stage where we replay our own stories, our wounds, our unfinished dreams. Sometimes we believe we love someone, but in reality what we love is the echo they awaken in us. That echo can be sweet like a promise of completeness. But it can also be painful like the reopening of a wound that never healed. Haven't you ever felt, in front of a distant person, that you wanted to convince them, seduce them, win them over, not for who they were but for what they represented? A victory over rejection, a restoration of your worth, proof that you were worthy? So who are you really chasing? The other, or a part of yourself you've never dared to embrace. The invisible current of emotions. Within you flows an underground river, unseen, running since childhood. It carries memories, wounds, unfinished desires. Every intimate encounter acts like a stone thrown into that river. It creates ripples, waves, turbulence. When you meet someone who does not value you, that inner river stirs. It brings to the surface what you thought you had forgotten. A missing gaze, an unspoken word, a recognition never given. And suddenly, you believe that this person has the power to fill the void. But in truth they are only a trigger. What they awaken in you was already there, long before. The illusion of the chase. Have you noticed how the mind clings to what slips away? Far from soothing us, uncertainty draws us in like an abyss. We confuse intensity with truth. We believe that the more it burns, the more authentic it must be. But sometimes that fire is not love, it is simply lack speaking violently. Perhaps you were not in love with that person. Perhaps you were in love with the quest they triggered in you. In love with the adrenaline of doubt, the tension of waiting, the promise of a gaze that might finally meet your need to be seen. Is it really the other you are chasing, or the emotion they unknowingly give you? The mirror of the soul. Mystics say that every being we meet is but a mirror. Some reflect our light, others our shadows. The man or woman who does not value us confronts us with a brutal truth. We often search outside for what we refuse to give ourselves. And what if what you so desperately desired in that person was not their love, but your own reflection through them? And what if this painful attraction was not a mistake, but an invitation to face yourself, to recognize that within you lives a forgotten part, a neglected part, a part that simply longs to be loved by you? The journey continues. Let yourself travel further still. Imagine standing before this person who never truly recognized you. Their eyes do not rest on you. Their heart does not beat for you. But instead of feeling the void, imagine turning inward. And there, in the silence, you discover another presence, your own. A part of you that has been waiting all along, ready to give you what you have been seeking in another. And what if the true quest was not to capture the gaze of another, but to rediscover your own? So ask yourself, who have you been chasing all this time? Is it the other, or a part of yourself you still refuse to recognize? And what if this inner journey began not when another loves you, but when you accept to love yourself? The projection of wounds. A disturbing truth hides behind many attachments. Many women who seek men who do not value them are unconsciously replaying a past story. It's no coincidence. It's not bad luck. It is the reactivation of a pattern, an invisible script written long before the encounter. An absent father. A lost love. Words never spoken. An unmet need to be recognized. These marks leave an imprint. And this imprint acts like a map that unconsciously guides partner choices. The concept of repetition. In psychology, Freud called this the compulsion to repeat. It is an unconscious tendency to replay painful situations from the past over and over, as if the mind were seeking to finally solve an equation that never found a solution. Why does a woman return to men who neglect her? Why does she choose, again and again, partners who do not recognize her worth? Because deep down there is a secret hope. Maybe this time the story will be different. Maybe I can heal by convincing someone who resembles my past to finally love me. It is a quest for repair. But this quest often turns in circles. Instead of healing, one repeats. The projection of wounds. The relationship then becomes a theater where old wounds are replayed. The indifferent or distant man is not just himself. He unconsciously carries the role of a figure from the past. The man who does not value her may symbolize a father who failed to see his daughter. The lover who remains cold may awaken the memory of an unreciprocated adolescent love. The distant partner may become the double of a first rejection that left a deep scar. Thus, the mind does not choose randomly. It projects onto the other an old expectation, a still living wound. And the relationship becomes the stage where this unfinished drama is replayed. Have you ever felt that your current partner strangely resembled someone from your past? Not in physical traits but in the emotions they awaken in you? The brain and familiarity. The human brain primarily seeks what is familiar, not what is good for it. Emotional security does not always come from healthy love, but from what we already know. For a woman who grew up in a climate of indifference or rejection, a stable, valuing man may feel foreign, almost uncomfortable. Whereas a distant man, giving only crumbs of attention, triggers a sense of déjà vu. It is painful but familiar. And familiarity reassures, even if it causes pain. This is why so many people chain themselves to relationships that hurt them, because they unconsciously reproduce the emotional atmosphere of their childhood or early affective experiences. Attachment experiences. Attachment psychology explains much of these dynamics. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth showed that the way we bond with other adults largely stems from the quality of attachments we experienced as children. A child raised with attentive parents often develops secure attachment. But a child whose emotional needs were ignored, minimized, or unpredictably treated develops insecure attachment. And this insecure attachment leaves a lasting imprint. In adulthood, it drives us to seek partners who reactivate the same climate of lack or uncertainty, as if the mind were trying to rewrite its original story. Do you recognize this pattern in yourself? Have you ever wondered whether your romantic choices are a direct reflection of your childhood? The trap of repetition. This mechanism explains why so many women find themselves in a spiral where they give everything, hoping the other will eventually change, see them, love them. But the other does not change. What changes is the pain, intensifying with every failed attempt, because each effort reactivates the original wound. Repetition does not heal, it sustains. It deepens the scar with every cycle. And here lies the tragedy: we think we are moving forward, but we are going in circles. Awareness as the first step. A psychologist would say, the first step is not to change the other but to recognize the pattern. Because as long as this pattern remains unconscious, it silently directs our choices. Asking simple but radical questions can already shake this mechanism. Am I seeking to love, or to repair? Am I pursuing this person, or a figure from my past through them? Does this bond elevate me, or does it repeatedly drag me back into old pain? These questions act like flashlights in a dark room, revealing the invisible threads that link the present to the past. So reflect for a moment. What patterns do you repeat without even realizing it? How many times have you believed you were experiencing something new, when in fact you were only replaying an old scene? And what if true freedom meant not choosing another partner, but finally breaking the cycle of repetition? The truth is hard but liberating. A man who does not value a woman only awakens an inner battle that she alone can resolve. It is not the other who must save us, but the light we find within ourselves. So the real question is not, why do women want men who do not value them? The real question is, when will we finally choose to value ourselves?